Now let's talk about how startups can be the destination for women entrepreneurs. See, startups and indeed all the businesses do better when women are given a chance to lead. Women themselves are realizing that startups are some of the best places to build your career. Now, let's open this conversation with our esteemed panel of experts. We have with us Ms. Archana Jain, Managing Director, PR Pundit. Welcome, ma'am. I feel immense pleasure to welcome Ms. Nandita Lakshmanan, who is the founder and chairperson of the practice. Ms. Soumya Kant is also with us, who is the co-founder of Purple Panda Fashions Private Limited, Clovia.com. Along with them, we have Mr. Vivek Bhargava, co-founder ProfitWheel, and I would request Ms. Manisha Chaudhary, founder and director, Value 360 Communications, to moderate this discussion. Over to you, Manisha.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are discussing today how startups can be the next destination for more women entrepreneurs. India has seen a rapid growth in entrepreneurship in the past decade, and over the last few years, many women have entered the league of leading startups. While pioneers like Kiran Majumdar-Shaw are there to remind us that nothing can come in the way of their fiery streak, newer unicorn owners like Nykaa's Falguni Nair are taking the torch of inspiration forward. Without wasting any time, I would like to begin with my set of questions. Our panelists here will be sharing their interesting views on entrepreneurship, the role that is being played by female founders in the startup ecosystem, what are the challenges we face, and any recommendations. Archana, my first question is for you. You have been one of the pioneers in the Indian PR industry and a successful businesswoman, and you have closely witnessed the slow but gradual change in the entrepreneurship setup. Please share your views on any specific challenges witnessed by you when you started, both in terms of doing business for women and from perception bit as well. And if you want to, also give some comparison of, the challenges when you started the company a couple of years back and now how the things look like. So any specific learning, that you would like to share with us today?
Thanks, Manisha. And hello to the others, Nandita, Soumya, my fellow female entrepreneurs. I was stung by the entrepreneurial bug about 7.5 years after having been in the PR profession and starting my journey in the sort of late 90s as a female entrepreneur in a fairly male-dominated domain at that point of time. Was, I wouldn't say very daunting, but yeah, somewhat, yes. But I think that was, a sense of fright that anybody entering into a new domain or in trying to do something on your own sort of witnesses, right? It doesn't come naturally to all of us. There are stomach bugs that you get and all of that. But it was July 1998. Most of the consulting firms had a very corporate focus. So I sort of said, okay, let's look at how is it that we can do some benchmarking work in consumer PR. We wanted to drive true brand preference by creating some sort of meaningful campaigns that would just go beyond creating brand trust, but really looking at how is it that we can move the products off the shelves into customers' carts and hearts. So to answer your question, was there discrimination for me as a woman entrepreneur? Maybe somewhat. I can't say no. International companies and women leaders were more welcoming than conservative organizations, I must say, at that point of time. And even today, many companies that have a predominantly male leadership team somewhat feel uncomfortable working with a team that is largely women advisors. A fair section across corporate India do view advice and insights from women consultants with maybe a slight degree of skepticism, maybe. I'm not saying that there aren't progressive lots around, but that's certainly it. But I think it stems from a real social issue in society. And that is what we need to shake off. Apart from that, really, my struggles were no different from any other entrepreneur. The first 3 years are fraught with frustrations, when you want to do big scale work in your style, but there's no legacy. And, so you kind of have to go through the pains of that, but nothing that belief in perseverance cannot overcome. So I believe that the only thing holding back women is confidence. So my message would be, believe in yourself, believe in your idea, and don't let up.
Thanks, Archana. I was studying in school in 1998. I'm glad that I asked this question and I got to know a little bit about your journey. Moving on to you, Soumya. You are running a successful startup called Clovia, and we have many such examples of successful startups being led by successful female founders. So, I want to have your views on the increased presence of women entrepreneurs in the startup ecosystem. I also want you to add some inputs on what Archana mentioned on the social issues in society. What are we facing this today as well, like in today's dynamic environment? And since you started Clovia, so do you think factors like starting young or knowing the field in and out before venturing out really matters now? Over to you, Soumya.
Hi. So, see, I was born in a very progressive family, wherein my parents left me to be independent from day zero. My father made me change light bulbs to telephone to car tires, everything. And his approach to life, or rather, my parents' approach to life was simple, that you have to have equal opportunities and hence equal responsibilities as well. So, while growing up, I came from a certain privilege wherein I didn't have to see the gender biasness, the gender issues that many women face. It's only when we started Clovia that we realized that, and 70% of our workforce is women. It's that when we realized that so many women working with us have to do the heavy lifting at home, they're managing their households on their own, they're managing their children on their own, and then obviously supporting their households with their income, almost 80%. So that's when we realized the gender biasness that sort of exists in the world. And it was a late realization for me personally. When we started Clovia, I didn't face so much of a gender biasness. I didn't face any hiccups as such. We were lucky to not have faced that. But even today, when hiring in Clovia, or rather a few years ago, when hiring in Clovia, we saw that it's so deep rooted that a lot of managers would tell the HR that, I would prefer a male over a female. Varying reasons for it, that maybe women will not work as hard enough, or will not given enough time, will not be suitable. And that behavior was then shut down by us. We told them that this will not be tolerated at all. And it was shut down to the point that you have to give them, if you can't give them concessions, give them equal opportunities. Give them a platform to fight fair and square for the roles that are out there, for the jobs that are out there. And so in my experience, I feel that um, while we don't want any concessions, we would also appreciate equal opportunities. And in that, our country right now is a little lagging. I would say that at least from what my knowledge, the country is going leaps and bounds, and significant headway has been made. But still a long way to go, a lot to be done. And on your second question, that should I know the area that I'm entering? It doesn't matter what you've studied or what education you've had, if you've had education in that industry or not. But I would say that there are a lot of ways to learn about the subject, and one should definitely be well prepared and well researched. So if I'm doing something and if my research is half-hearted, or my research is not on point, then the chances of me succeeding will obviously go down. So while in this dynamic environment that we are, it doesn't matter what age group you are in, what gender you are in, but you can make up for all of that by just doing your research really thoroughly. So that's my take on it.
Thanks, Soumya, for your inputs. I think it is a good eye opener, and to listen from a woman entrepreneur that, it doesn't matter what your age is and if you have a sectorial experience or not, but if you have the passion, you can do it. So moving on to Nandita now. Nandita, I would like to discuss, your views on the government and private equity, help that is required to bring in more women entrepreneurs in the fold. We keep listening that there is a need for sustainable growth of women entrepreneurs in India, but what do you think can be done both at the government level and at the private equity level? Yes, over to you, Nandita.
So, well, Manisha, I also, pretty much started the practice around just maybe a couple of years after, Archana did, a few years after Archana did. And at that time, when you kind of launch into, setting up a consulting firm, you're not kind of really aware of, what lies, what is there around you for you to leverage as an entrepreneur. Of course, things have changed so much in the last 2 decades. And, just do a quick search for incentives for women entrepreneurship in India, and you kind of get about, 9 schemes, if not more. You had Niti Aayog that launched the Women Entrepreneurship Platform, the web. There are public sector banks that give loans for women entrepreneurship. So the question is, there is enough. Well, you can definitely have a lot more, but there is enough. The question really is there awareness and utilization of this incentives and schemes? So, there was just a few months back, the latest State of Women in Technology Entrepreneurship Study by Makers India. It had some startling facts, and I'm going to quote some of the key takeaways. Right? The funding raised by Indian startups with at least one woman founder accounted for just 5.77% of the total startup investments in India for January 2018 to 20. Startups with only one female founder accounted for around 1.43% of the total startup investments in India between 2018 and June 2020. Now, also then, of course, COVID struck, and as it is, we've had women dropping out of the workforce as they kind of go up the corporate ladder, but it's also hit women entrepreneurs hard. And it was found that funding for women-founded and co-founded startups actually fell almost 24% in the first 6 months of 2020, right? So, a lot has to be done. And the good thing is that we're talking about it, and we should continue to do so. But, Archana made a very valid point that, there are societal and economic inequities that, need to be ironed out. And we've kind of lived with them for like decades, even actually centuries, right? And therefore, we need to continue to talk about it. And there is a need for more funding to go towards women-funded, founded businesses. So there are steps being taken. VCs like Fireside Ventures or the Kalari-backed, the 10 million CXXO fund are examples. We need to do more. Then there are women networking forums. This is interesting. Women networking forums like Saunders Connect, for example, which is really doing amazing work with early stage women entrepreneurs. And there are Apple, for example, has initiatives for women working in women-oriented businesses, and also Spark, Sequoia-backed Spark, also has some initiatives where they're grooming and nurturing women entrepreneurs. So I think there is an ecosystem coming together. But sometimes I also feel that it is still a closed network, and perhaps somewhat elitist at this point in time, because we don't know whether the tier 2, tier 3 cities and, other than people who have the wherewithal, to access these kind of forums are really, being able to access them and benefit from these. I think it's also important to know that today women representation in India's entrepreneurial pie is only 14%. So, government, VCs, all of, everyone has a lot of work to do, but, even the corporate sector, all of us, for example, I think we need to consciously keep backing women in leadership positions. Today corporate India has an inflated middle, a lot of women managers, but we know that we lose them all as they move up into leadership role. So we need to continuously work at this. And then, of course, as Archana mentioned, the social conditioning, which starts at a very, very early age and also is kind of deep-rooted. And we need to weed some of the negatives of that out. So that's what I would say.
Thanks for your inputs, Nandita. Vivek, for you, you are our only male panelist in this panel today. So I want to have your views on the status of women entrepreneurs in the society today. Archana talked about the male-dominated world in the year 1998 when she started. So I would like to have you also come from a very large experience. So what are your views on, how our women entrepreneurs are performing in the industry today? Along with that, I also would like to pick up your brain on the policy bit. What do you think can be done both by the government and the private equity level, or what kind of ecosystem can be created to bring in more women entrepreneurs at the grassroots level?
Sure. So Manisha, I'll just share with you one story, right? So when I sold my company to Dentsu, and then my earnout got over and I was trying to find a replacement for myself, the person who I found most competent, who would actually do the job better than me, was a person called Rubina Singh. And when we got her on board, at some level, I had to, our entire senior management team, unfortunately, that point in time was male. And there was this little bit of hesitancy at some levels, right? So I was very clear that we are going to get a person on board who's the most competent person, in nothing to do with the gender of the person. So it starts at the top, right? Unfortunately, for advertising agencies, we won't have 50-50 ratio when people start off. But if we have 23 companies, maybe 3 of them are led by women and the rest 20 of them are led by men. So somewhere or the other, the drop-off happens. I've invested in 20 plus companies, only 2 of them are in a way led by women. But so the fact of the matter is that if I come across 25 deals, what Nandita mentioned, 5% of the people are funded. But if somebody just looks at number of companies, angel investors or private equity players come across, right, that itself the ratio is 5%. So even if like 2 out of 20 for me is 10%, but the thing is, if I met 100 companies, only 5 companies out of them or 3 companies out of them are led by women founders, right? To some level, I feel that more than policy, right, I think it happens, what Soumya mentioned, is that how progressive we are as parents. So my daughter is 18 years old. She basically made 10 lakh rupees in December being a social media influencer. So now she started a company. So in a way, at some level, she's become incapable of doing a job. But once you start earning 10 lakh rupees a month when you're 18, it's impossible for you to do any job at all, right? Because she has to be an entrepreneur. So she started her own company. And I have always told her what my father told me, that, you have 2 ways of being successful in life. One is take a job or become an entrepreneur. If you take up a job, you have to spend less than what you earn in order to remain happy and successful. But if you're an entrepreneur, you can spend as much as you want. You have to just make sure that you earn more than that. So these are the DNA things that my father told me, which encouraged me to be an entrepreneur. But I think this level, as you said, the problem is very, very deep rooted. So one of my friends is Amira Shah. We were on a TV show together. She shared with me instances where she's met people in large consulting companies. And when she would ask a question, the person would actually reply to her main colleague who was reporting to her rather than reply to her looking at her face. So the challenges are that a lot of these things are very, very deep rooted. At some level, we have to change those things. So partly, I think there were examples like She Capital has been set up by a friend of mine called Manisha Singh, which is funding women entrepreneurs per se. There has to be some incentives given, but I think it's a bigger challenge with the mindset problem. It happens at the parenting level, at the government level, at the employee levels, where in a way I would like to say is that at some level, the mindset has to be, there has to be equality, and equality is not to do with diversity or gender. As Soumya said, equal opportunities, right? So many times what happens is that when I'm talking to a person, in a way, I should forget the age of the person, gender of the person, and I should just talk to them how I would talk to any other human being. As long as there is a mindset, okay, I have to do something special for a woman, then actually, then at some level, there is no equality. Then you are trying to force something out. But I think the opportunities has to be equal, right? So if I want to fund 50% of my angel investments into women-founded startups, so at least 20-30% of the people who approach me must be those people. And this, again, we can discuss it further, but I feel that if a man is 30%, 50% qualified for the job, he'll apply. And the woman could be 90% sort of qualified for that job, she'll be hesitant to apply because she's missing the 10%. Same way the entrepreneurship, right? People with half-baked business plans will approach me all the time. And a person who approaches me as a woman, she would be right up there in the quality of people who would have approached me, but she will come and apologize that she's not prepared as yet. So at some level, the mindset change has to be done. We are teaching our kids, sons, to go out, fall down, hurt themselves is okay. And we're telling our children who are, let's say, girls, that, watch out, don't be careful what you dress, what you say, what you do. So some level, I think entrepreneurship is about having that courage. And as parents, we have to figure out how to encourage women to be more courageous.
Thanks, Vivek. I'm very impressed with your daughter. I think at the age of 18, she's doing really great. Coming back to you, Archana, and both Vivek and Nandita touched a few very important things. They talked about societal and economic inequities. They also talked about the leadership roles for women in startup, and it was a global issue. So I would like to have your views on, what do you think about the gender disparity, which is still persistent? And what, according to you, steps can be taken by the private community or, in the ecosystem to address the issue of this gender diversity? Yes.
Yeah, I think both Vivek and Nandita and you yourself, you're so right. Women occupy such a small segment in the sort of wealth index, so as to speak, right? The Bloomberg Billionaire Index claims that women who make up half of the world's population, right? And self-made make up just less than 5% of the world's 500 biggest fortunes. So there's a huge gap to be filled. I think from what I heard, the others also said, there's just a lack of confidence amongst the women to come forth with an idea to chase their dream. So we need to encourage more and more women to dare to dream for themselves. I think I heard somewhere Falguni of Naika say this, that, why do we shy away from allowing the spotlight to be on our lives, on ourselves as women? Why do we always look at shining the spotlight on, other people in our family, the children, etc.? So if you look at it, if that has to change, where is the change going to come from? I think the rise of the female entrepreneur will essentially come from listening to women. I think that's going to be the early part of where the growth is going to come. And we've already seen that happen, right? If you look at Bumble, they've grown because they found a need that this is how women want to date, right? Or Mama Earth, which looked at, okay, this is how, I need to nurture my child. Or Slurp Farm, that also said the same thing, that, this is what I want to feed my child. So because they listen, if women entrepreneurs would listen to the ignored, what for years have been ignored by the other population, I think there's an opportunity there. There's an opportunity for enterprise. Like you said, right? Nandita, was it you that said 14% of, they're less than that? But I look at it as as a glass half full. At least we are 14%. So you're seeing a growth. More and more entrepreneurs. Where are these? And that's going to be a huge source of inspiration. If people look at Nykaa, people look at Mama Earth, people look at Slurp Farm, people look at Fab Alley, Zivame, etc. I think that's going to be a huge inspiration. And women entrepreneurs can shake up the business ecosystem more and more in the future. Because they will find, you know, like I said, if they're going to just look into what is it that women need when they go to the toilet, we need a pee buddy, right? Therein came a solution. When, you know, this is something that you need when you're pregnant for caring. So the femtech kind of solution, or products which have for long been ignored, or let's say that have been a result of, let's say, the daily frustrations of lives. Somebody will have to fill in that gap, and who better than women who would understand that these are real life problems that need to be resolved. The internet revolution, that will create the same sort of aspiration amongst tier 2, tier 3 rural economy. So suddenly the underrepresented section of the women will have the courage to also come up with certain solutions. I know Vivek may not agree to it, but they say that men are motivated by profit, by financial gain. Women tend to have, yes, but that's lower on their radar as much as, you know, profit. So they seem to be wanting to be catalysts of change, more driven by causes, more wanting to be part of the community. And I think as our society gets more egalitarian, you will see that more and more women launch startups that are looking to solve real problems. I think climate change, sustainability, all of these will also be greater, will galvanize interest from women to be part of the entrepreneurial world, because these issues will become core, will become mainstream, and who better than women to sort of lead that. And I think somebody mentioned earlier that, you know, there is we are in a male-dominated society. Companies, sadly, diversity becomes a very, very key issue that they always keep tabling as part of their governance issues, etc., because they are way behind in bridging that gender inequality. And a lot of women will walk away from those sort of thinking because there may be some inadvertent biases, and will jump into entrepreneurship as a way. Now, if you look at it, you've got entrepreneurs coming up in cause-oriented, sustainable organizations, or people who are walking away from corporate thing. Now, these female organizations will become a magnet for more and more women that will want to work for these organizations. So we have, I think, a culture that is developing, which is going to be more women-friendly, which will definitely provide, I mean, look at the maternity that has been extended now from 3 months to 6 months by corporate organizations. All of that is kind of changing society. So the flexibility, the autonomy that a woman leader will be able to give the larger workforce, and specifically if they are entrepreneurs themselves, I think will create a more meaningful society, and which will encourage possibly more and more women entrepreneurs.
Thanks, Archana. Soumya, Archana actually talked, she gave a very good point, you know, the rise of female entrepreneurs and the solutions and the services, you know, they can come out with, or how society is changing, cultural, you know, how things are changing to accept women entrepreneurs. I feel in the startup ecosystem, investor community plays a very important role. While access to funding opportunities, support has definitely improved, however, still there is a long way to go. Since you must have been dealing with the investor community for your company. So I would like to understand your views on the challenges which you feel that women are still facing today, if there are any, when it comes to raising capital. And what role do you think an investor community should be playing to address the issues of gender disparity, or, the support that can be given so that we are having more women entrepreneurs in the fold? Over to you, Soumya.
Right. So actually, it's a double-edged sword, Manisha. Like Vivek sir mentioned, that only 2 of his companies were female-led. So one is that we need to give women the confidence to reach out to, and that can only happen by, when we lead by example, when women like you, women like here on the panel, parents like Vivek, who've given such a great progressive parenting to Ishika, people like us spread the message that, you have the skills, you have the right things to actually go out there and make something of your own. So that is one, and that is our responsibility. The other is on the investor side that, and a lot has changed on that front. A lot of their team members are now women, and hence the directive has changed a lot. But I think they also need to give a more conducive environment, a little bit of, I will not say concession again, don't give any concessions whatsoever, but just a platform to give equal opportunity to women to present, to reach out to them. Don't reject them because of their genders. Don't reject them because they have a gender specific issue that they're solving. So I think it's a double-edged thing that both the sides have to solve. Not just the investor community needs to be more progressive. Women as a whole, the community as a whole also needs to gain this confidence and start reaching out.
Thanks, Soumya. Taking the point of the investor community, I would like to ask this question from Vivek again. Vivek, you have been an investor as well. So I would like to understand, if you want to suggest, any steps that should be taken more by the investor community, which can help in having, more female entrepreneurs in the fold. And also along with that, if you would like to add more points which you feel can help in further accelerating the, this whole narrative of women entrepreneurship in our country.
So Manisha, I would just like to point out what Archana said for a second, right? So I do sort of agree or disagree with Archana that I think one of the things that we have to learn as men or as well as women is not to generalize. Because even a statement like that, there are more women who may not be motivated with profit, right? You're suddenly alienating a certain set of investors who per se would like to create wealth, right? So I'm not saying that, so let's say put this way, right? Once a person makes a certain amount of money, like I went 10 days to Arctic Circle and I learned about climate change. So once I've made my basic monies, today I would say I want to create a large company, but it's a score. It's not for the purpose of wealth. So somebody gave me $100 million today. I said, okay, take this money and make 10 billion out of it. At the end of the period, the entire 10 billion will be taken away from you. You will not get a single dollar. I'll take that opportunity up because I would love that process of enjoy of wealth creation, of taking $100 million company and creating a $10 billion company. And I know equally really ambitious women who have created multi-billion dollar company, including, Amira from Metropolis or Falguni from Nykaa or that, right? So I think basically what we should do is that at some level, the mindset, right? So when you talk about investments, I think women have to somehow or the other, given that confidence either from their spouses, from their partners, from their parents, that even if they are 7 out of 10 there, just go and be brave. Like, I think the biggest challenge is that some or the other, this is one thing that I've seen constantly. The women entrepreneurs who approach me for funding, actually most of them will get funded because they are so much far off in terms of preparedness than some of the male entrepreneurs who approach me, right? So I would say that we are living in the age of abundance. That is abundance of capital. There's abundance of everything. So that I think that the courage that is required, it at some level, it's not starting off early. It's not starting at a really, really young age where they're told to tear themselves. I'll give you a simple example, right? My daughter had to go and meet someone at 8 p.m. in some club, right? And my first reaction my wife had was that, who's the guy? How old is he? Is he going to sit with you in the conference room? And I said, I told my daughter, I said, see, listen, let's take, if there are 500 million men in India, out of which this is the percentage who would be doing something. Out of that, you are a kid right now. So that means you're talking the person who pedophiles is further down. The chances of something happening to you in a club, which is a public place, is almost as rare as a person who be interested in boys. So I don't want you to have this fear in your life ever. But I think if we prepare them to be courageous from day one, and I'm not even talking this is courage, right? But the very fact is that the thought came into my wife's mind. She communicated that thought to my daughter, and she hesitates now to have a meeting with somebody at 8 p.m. I think it's a problem, right? So I think along with the opportunities that should be created from the venture and the private equity ecosystem, I think at some level, grassroots communication has to be done that in general, the world is a good place. Because there is 1% of that world which is bad, we have to not let that color their thinking about people whom they've not met. Like I have this thing that I've told Rishika is that trust everyone. Don't ever doubt anybody's intent till the time they give you a reason to doubt their intent. So your first reaction has to be of trust, that never doubt anybody's intent, right? Because you're going to unfortunately deal with people where 90% of the people who fund you, work with you, etc., are going to be men. So at no point in time, you should have this thought coming into your mind that there is some challenge with the intent, right? So again, Manisha, I'm probably skipping your question, but I feel that this is the biggest challenge I think we face in the world, where some or the other, we are conditioning our children towards looking at men differently and telling them that they have to be different. If we can change that equation some ways, and even what Archana mentioned, right? Honestly, that may not be true. That may be true for us, as you as Archana or me as Vivek. But as soon as we generalize it, right? Even a single statement like this, if there is 100 VCs attending to the stock, some of them already have this stupid bias in their mind, right? And they'll take back this bias. And then tomorrow they'll meet an ambitious women entrepreneur who's going to create a multi-billion-dollar company. And they'll remember the stupid statement that they heard, and they converted that into a bias and just reinforce their bias, right? So I think this is one thing that we have to be very, very careful with, more as women, less as men, that we can't have biases. We have to start with a zero budget, a completely clean slate, look at humanity and look at the opportunities, and that's how we can take this forward. But again, Archana, my view, I may be wrong, but I believe that unfortunately, these are the biases that they build up, right?
No, you make a very fair point. Absolutely. There is absolutely no generalist, but I read a report and we generalized this. So I said, well, yeah, all the more reason, then where will that opportunities, what are the kind of opportunities that women will chase? Women will chase opportunities that they can relate to. And those relatable opportunities will be in problem areas that they can identify with. And that's all I'm trying to say. Well, it won't be purely profit driven. In a way, I kind of buy into that concept. It may not be, well, it could be. I'm not saying that. It's not like saying, people are only chasing. But if you look at even the way most of the opportunity of successful women entrepreneurs is coming from a need gap, right? But so do men chase need gap. We're not generalizing it, but there is going to be growth more because women have been underserved. Opportunities or the need gaps for women are maybe larger at the moment.
See, Archana, the problem is, right, the history is written by the victorious. So when you read reports, when we look at all these things, right, they come with this inherent bias. So my thinking is that at no point in time, either as men or women, we should have any of these biases, right? Because these biases are detrimental to some ambitious women entrepreneur who's trying to create $100 billion company, and she's motivated with profit, which is nothing wrong with it. She's not motivated with purpose, but why should we put that thought in? We may have our views about ourselves. I can say that, okay, Archana, you can say that, okay, I am more purpose driven. That's good enough, right? That's you. But I should not say this about anybody else, whether man or woman, right? So because as soon as you generalize, unfortunately, that's the bias that's being created. Unfortunately, 9 out of 10 or 18 out of or 19 out of 20 people are men who are running these companies that she's already fighting that battle. And then I think we should not make that battle tougher. That's my 2 bits on it.
Thanks, Vivek, for your inputs. I think one statement that you mentioned, that how we have to, tell our kids that world is a beautiful place. I can relate to it. I have a teenage daughter, and sometimes I do have these discussions with her. So, Nandita, coming to you, our panelists talked about, being courageous, being confident. You have been running a successful PR company for so many years. Along with that, I really want you to add some inputs on the skills that one should have to become a successful businesswoman. If you can, add some inputs there. Yeah.
Manisha, before I answer that question, 2 points. One is I have a 20-year-old son. And, equally, as much as we are encouraging our daughters, I think it's so important to sensitize our young men, and not alienate them from this, empowering women kind of, movement that is, ongoing and so important. So I think that is critical. I would say parenting, because, we're also having to raise children who are sensitive to the needs of the world and the universe, and not just, being driven by valuations and, all of that. The second point I want to raise is this, it's a myth. And I've always said this from the time, because, this conjoining of investments and VCs and, with entrepreneurship, is also, is very, very prevalent. But I do feel that we must all reconcile to the fact that many of us have started entrepreneurial ventures without taking a penny from VCs. So, today, we're kind of creating this whole thing that you can't be an entrepreneur unless you take VC money. So I think, it is important to know that you can do that, and you can build successful businesses by investing back into your business and even take it to scale, but to each his own. So those are two points that I wanted to kind of put out there, because I think this chasing VCs or attracting VCs could also be a deterrent for women to take to entrepreneurship. And I just want to say that it is absolutely possible, and you can set up businesses without venture capital funding or, etc. So that's the second point. Now, coming back to your question on skills, yes, confidence, all of that is important. But I want to relate a story. In 2009, I was invited to attend a mentorship program, it's only when that opportunity came to me that I really understood what mentorship was about. Until then, I was kind of, pretty much doing things on my own. I had, very few people I would kind of talk to about the business. And once I entered the mentorship, which was so beautifully put together, where I realized that I have the passion, I have the knowledge, I have an understanding of my industry. What I really needed, because I was 10 years, almost 9 years into my business, was how do I take the business to the next level? And for that, I personally needed understanding of how to scale talent and attract good talent, and also, be flexible about the kind of talent I want. I needed to know, how, various hardcore business principles work, right? That was not something that I was exposed to. So I needed to understand all of that. And I got that from my 2-week mentorship program, which I think has held me in good stead over the last decade or more. And I really believe that While confidence, networking, all of that is very, very critical. I think at some stage it is equally important for women entrepreneurs to be exposed to, business planning, how to scale, what it takes, how to manage financial management, talent management, how to create new products and services, packaging, right? All of those elements need to come together. And those are hard skills. So I definitely say that today a lot of emphasis, rightly so, is being put on aspects like networking, changing mindsets. And I also feel that the more we see, I mean, my entrepreneurial journey willingly perhaps began because I started my career in an entrepreneurial venture. Archana moved on to set up her own. So I've had examples. And so for me to say that, okay, maybe I could do it too, right? It's closer home. So I think creating more such examples and saying that normalizing women entrepreneurship, I think would be a step forward.
Thanks, Nandita. We are having a very great discussion, but now I think it is time to have concluding remarks from all the panelists. I am giving a statement and I would like to have concluding remarks from all of you, starting from Soumya. Why cast a doubt on women entrepreneurs? It is no exaggeration that female entrepreneurs have the power to change the world. Soumya?
My only thought would be the only way to get anywhere is to get started. So whatever be your gender, just get started.
Thank you. Archana, would you like to add now?
I think be the change.
Vivek?
I think it's the best time for women entrepreneurship. Because of COVID, working from home, creating D2C brands, creative economy, flexibility of timing and location, just the safety aspect of it, and the global opportunities, right? You can sit in India and have global opportunities. Like my company is focused on North America. So the fact of the matter is that this is the best time for women entrepreneurship to equalize. 5% can become 15% or not. The next 10 years, I think, is the most exciting period for entrepreneurship and more so for women entrepreneurship.
Nandita, please.
I agree with that. I think this is, the time is really ripe. Like I said earlier, there is an ecosystem beginning to form. And, recognizing that to say that we have a platform to launch, more and more women into entrepreneurship, I endorse your statement, Manisha, 100%.
But I just feel a few things still need to be addressed in our society. Where is the childcare in our society?
Yes.
Where is even today, most women drop out of corporate careers or hesitate in stepping into entrepreneurship because they're managing families. Where is that share the load equation? I think those two also need to be corrected. The moment there is a childcare system, or let's say some sort of support there, we will see a lot more women coming into the
childcare and elder care, Archana. I'd add elder care
too, exactly.
And equal partnerships at home, and that's why I think that becomes so important.
May I give 2 bits of my view, Manisha? Do we have time?
Yes. 2 bits. Yeah.
I'll give you my view, right? As a male. See, the thing is, asking male in India to change and share the load, it is going to take 30, 40, 50 years. It's not going to happen tomorrow. But I think if there is this age of abundance where we can have a lot more wealth creation for entrepreneurship, I think there is an opportunity that the share the load can happen with different, whether it's, things like dishwashers or things like elder care, somebody helping out, or having somebody as house help, having more drivers. So basically the thing is that entrepreneurship can actually share the load if you are making and creating wealth. Because if you go down this path that, I have to be less ambitious for my daughter or my wife to succeed, and I have to share the load, like I have not been in the kitchen. I'm now 40 plus. I don't think I can go and cook, even if I would like to. But I feel that if I'm a successful entrepreneur and my wife is a successful entrepreneur, we can afford somebody who can help us. So I just feel that changing mindset is very difficult.
Totally, Vivek, but in
fighting the
most,
battle,
an average Indian household, the gentleman will not allow for an extra help.
No, so that's what I'm saying. So what happens is
he doesn't encourage his parents to say, I need an extra help because my wife wants to pursue a career.
As soon
The
as
day that changes, that's a big sharing the load. That's all. We don't need them to do the washes.
Okay,
No.
I'll tell you one thing.
It's a huge set.
My first cousin today earns ₹1 crore a month in an MLM company. She now has 2 drivers and 3 people helping her home. And the same mother-in-law who would have been hesitant for her to hire a single person help is now okay with 5-7 people working at the home because she's earning ₹1 crore a month. I'm just saying that if you take care of financial and you realize that if I allow my daughter-in-law to work and she's going to make a lot more money than my help is going to cost, then the mindset will change. So I'm just saying that entrepreneurship is actually a way for creating wealth and making enough money that you get to share a load. I'm just saying the same mother-in-law who will allow you to hire help is not going to allow her son in the kitchen to go and cook for the daughter, for the daughter-in-law, right?
Vivek, the reality is COVID, despite all, we talk about work from home and women being able to, actually the workforce, the contribution of women in the workforce has shrunk significantly during COVID, only because of this lack of equal partnership at home. And, very few of us are privileged enough to be in that brackets where we are able to earn and, do what we have to. So I think, and we can't wait 40, 50 years for things to change. I just feel it's a generational thing. And I do feel that, just the fact that, we are bringing up our children in a different way. We hope that in the next 7 to 8 years, because our children are going to become young adults and entering the workforce in the next 4 or 5 years, I hope that they will kind of understand what it means quote unquote.
My daughter can't make Maggie. She doesn't know how to switch on the gas. Right?
Which is fine.
No, I'm just saying that
the mindset, but
entrepreneurship is the only solution. I feel the short-term solution is creating more wealth, and that will share the load. That's my view. But
it hasn't changed anything in markets like the US. Even though there's enough wealth there, I think there are. It's not as simplistic as that is what I'd say.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you, Nandita. Thank you, Vivek. Thank you, Archana and Soumya. I think we need to organize another panel discussion to take this discussion forward. I would like to just share my concluding remark. Definitely, it is a time of women entrepreneurs in the startup ecosystem. But I do agree with my other, few fellow panelists that yes, we need some changes in the ecosystem to make that happen. But yes, it is a time for female entrepreneurs in India. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you, Manisha.
So thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your insightful thoughts. That was really a wonderful discussion.